What's up, everybody? This is the Sports League podcast, back for another week. I'm the host, Alex Leak. We got the co-host, Amanda. Amanda, great to have you back on the show and another week of football to talk.
Oh yeah, and we've got some controversial plays and reffing and some very interesting down to the wire games to talk this week. So I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. It was a fun week and a lot of surprises and a hard week to predict. Um, you know, our picks were pretty close. We disagreed on what three of them. We ended up switching one at the end, and you still gained a game on me. So now I'm down seven. I'm in trouble here. I need to get on a winning streak.
Yeah, I mean that's going to be hard to do though because I mean this was a rough week for me. I got 5 games wrong. So, finished the week at 61, 62%, which is really low for me. But for you that's pretty much your standard so far this season.
Well, I'm going on a hot streak. I'm warning you now. It's coming.
Yeah. Listeners, he's been saying that for what, 2 months now? So,
I gotta stop picking against the Colts. I mean, uh,
and
I
the
bet
Lions.
on
The Lions are messing you up.
yeah, but the Lions. I know they're coming back down to earth here soon, and they're gonna lose to the Bears next week. So
I mean, we'll just see how the picks play out next week.
But speaking of the Colts, at the Titans, Indy comes in on a three-game winning streak, but no Jonathan Taylor. So I figured if the Colts could keep Zach Moss contained, not let him go for 200 yards and two touchdowns like he did in Week 5, they should have a good chance to win this. And they get out to a 17-7 lead. But really, to me, it's hard to win a game when you allow two blocked punts, right?
Yeah, that was a really rough game as far as like special teams for Tennessee. I mean they had a pretty good handle against the Colts offense, but I mean just some huge mistakes there at the end.
Mm-hmm. And then it goes into overtime, and they take the 3-point lead, but then the defense can't get the stop. Gardner Minshew throws the game winning touchdown pass. Colts win 31-28. But I wrote here in my notes before it took place, I said fire special teams coordinator. And then it happens. They fire special teams coordinator Craig Ackerman, two blocked punts, and then the missed extra point when the Titans could have taken a 1-point lead, and instead it was a tie game. Just a rough game for Tennessee.
Yeah, there was that fumble as well, in the third quarter, I think. That
Yeah.
definitely did not help. And Stonehouse being injured on that play was definitely an extra little sting to that.
Yeah, and you have to block the punt better than that. Like, that's just ridiculous. He hit him before he even kicked the ball. Like, that's as bad as it gets.
Yeah. I think it was just an off game for them, but I mean, both teams really showed up. And they were trying. Like we've seen games where, like, obviously they made mistakes in this game, but we've seen games where teams just don't show up. There's no passion in it and they're not even trying. This one they were actually trying. So like Tennessee showed up emotionally. They just didn't have I just didn't have the game in order. They weren't really on it as far as like the fundamentals, but at least they still act like they care, which is nice to see because some of these under 500 teams just seem like they've completely given up at this point.
Yeah, and to that point, they contained Zach Moss. He only combined for 57 yards and no touchdowns. And then on the other side, Derrick Henry, 120 yards, two touchdowns. Will Levis had a pretty good game. DeAndre Hopkins was impactful. But credit to Gardner Minshew. I keep hating on Minshew and these Colts, and but credit to Shane Steichen, credit to Gardner Minshew. They lose Anthony Richardson early in the season, and now they're on a 4-game winning streak at 7-5. The Colts are kind of defying all the odds here, and are right in the mix for the playoffs. It's crazy.
It was great to see Alec Pierce really step up and be that deep threat that Minshew needed. I mean, his two longest completions in the air, 55-yard completion in overtime and that 36-yard touchdown in regulation. Alec Pierce really stepped up. And I mean, he's a great complement to Michael Pittman Jr. So some
Hmm.
nice new weapons kind of developing for Minshew to throw to as well.
Absolutely. And so with Jonathan Taylor out 2 to 3 weeks, but the Colts are on a 4 game winning streak at 7-5, tied with the Texans for second place in the AFC South. Do you think the Colts can keep this up and get into the playoffs? I mean, I think the Texans are the better team, right? Don't you?
I mean, I think they are, but it also seems like they get a little panicked under pressure. I mean, look at this
Mhm.
game. Like the Colts are very quiet and content, and they don't seem frazzled by a lot. And the Titans definitely let some of the pressure get to them in this matchup. So I think I don't know. It's interesting. Something else that was interesting, I kept saying to you while we were messaging during the game that Will Levis just looks like Ryan Tannehill. But Ryan Tannehill had to come into this game to hold on to the kicks.
Yeah, and he said that he held it wrong, and that led to the missed kick too.
I know, I feel bad because I mean that's so awkward that like he was benched earlier in the season. Now they're like, hey, we need you to do something you haven't done before just because like we just need a warm body. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So I mean that had to be pretty tough.
Yeah, and things are not going well in Tennessee. I expect Derrick Henry to be gone. I expect DeAndre Hopkins to be gone, and I expect Mike Vrabel to be gone. So it's a rough year for the Titans. They're already 4-8. They're probably not going to do any better than 6-11, and and then it's going to be pretty much a complete rebuild over there. So some tough times for Titans fans.
Yeah, and I mean, you had just asked me how I felt like the Colts were doing coming down the line. You and I had talked earlier in the season about how like no, Minshew magic is over. That was ages ago. But I mean, 4 in a row, and
Yeah,
I've picked them to win some games, but I just didn't really like pay attention to like the streak they were on. But looking down the line, they only have one opponent who's under 500 currently. For the remaining
yeah.
5 games, the only opponent they play who isn't at a 500 mark is the Raiders, who have also kind of been warming up a little bit. They've got the Bengals, the Steelers, the Falcons, the Raiders, and the Texans. So it'll be interesting to see how they carry this streak on, or if it ends next week with against the Bengals.
Yeah, and with Jake Browning suddenly playing like prime Carson Palmer over there, but
Nick Brady.
um, but yeah, and that's why I still tend to think that while the Colts are playing well right now and playing better than we thought, they're gonna kind of reach their peak at some point, and then that'll be about it. I don't see them doing better than 9-8, and I think the Texans can at least go 9-8, if not 10-7. I'm rooting for the Texans over Indy for sure.
I think this will be one of those final weeks of the season where it really comes down to those teams duking it out for the division lead.
Yeah, I agree. And then we'll see what happens with Jacksonville. Suddenly they're only a game up, and Trevor Lawrence is hurt. The high ankle. So we'll see.
Yeah, Jacksonville without Trevor Lawrence is going to be a rough situation.
Yeah. How about the barn burner shootout in New England between the Chargers and Patriots?
Oh Lord. I just what is there to say about the Patriots at this point? I mean, we keep saying, "Oh, maybe this will be the week. Like they'll turn it around. They got to win sometime." But I mean, they have held their opponents. So their defense is doing its job. They've held their past three opponents to 10 points or under, 3 games straight. And yet they've lost all of those.
Yeah, that's embarrassing. That's unheard of in today's like high scoring, passing offense league. That's incredible. And 6-0. Even to hold the Chargers to 6 points, anybody else, you say that's a win, right? Even Tommy DeVito, that's a win, right?
Yeah.
But
I mean,
um,
and we know the Chargers have a lot of players on defense who can make plays. So, them shutting someone else isn't that big of a deal for the Chargers to do that. I mean, Khalil Mack, Derwin James, Eric Kendricks, like we kind of expect the Chargers to hold their opponents to low numbers. But I mean, Mack with his fifth multi-sack game this season, his fourth in the last 5 games. That
yeah,
LA defense is really showing up for them right now. And I mean, they just beat up on New England. I almost feel bad. Like New England's trying everything. Like, we're gonna put Bailey Zappi in and see how that goes. Like, no, changing the quarterback didn't help a single bit. Like, their offensive issues are just so ingrained at this point. I don't think there's any way to swap anyone in that. Like, they could put Tom Brady back in there, and this team would still lose out for the rest of the season.
um, yeah, and they lose their fifth straight, their longest losing streak since 1995. Rough times in New England. We all expect Bill Belichick to not come back or be traded, elsewhere. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him. But yeah, I mean, I think the Patriots at this point are damn near like tanking for Caleb Williams or Drake May. They need a quarterback desperately, and we know that Zappy and Mac Jones are not it.
Yeah, it's definitely time for them to move on. I don't know why they thought either one of them was going to be the guy. I never saw it, but at least they're finally, being forced to see it now.
Yeah. And then shout out Khalil Mack. He leads the NFL with 15 sacks, which ties his career high with 5 games to go. So Khalil Mack having a career best season. He's also second in forced fumbles in the league. So he's absolutely balling. Another guy that the Bears let go when they probably shouldn't have. And it's awesome to see Khalil Mack with plenty of gas still left in the tank.
Yeah, I mean, I know people were talking about his 6 sack game back in week 4 as being just, a one-off, but I mean, he's had what 9 sacks in the 8 games since, so he's definitely continuing that all pro season. So I'm rooting for him. He's a really fun player to watch, not so much to play against, but
Yeah.
definitely really fun to watch out on the field.
So the Chargers snap their 3 game losing streak. They get to 5-7, but I still don't see, even with Khalil Mack and Justin Herbert and Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen and Quentin Johnston, all these weapons, I still don't see these Chargers making the playoffs in a pretty competitive AFC West. And I think the Broncos are the second best team over there. The Chargers have so much talent and they consistently underachieve. I can't take them seriously. Can you?
I mean, in this one, like, I don't know how much you needed to show up against the Pats, and like that 3 game losing streak, this was a nice break for them. Like, this was kind of
Yeah.
a must win, but also like a kind of shoe in. Like, they kind of had a feeling they were going to win. So I think maybe they were pulling off the gas a little bit intentionally. Um, and I don't know if they should be doing that here, but I mean, if you're playing the arguably the worst team in the NFL right now, like, are you really going to try? Like, it has to be hard to fight the mental like desire just to like take it easy on this one, you know?
Yeah, the score, it doesn't really matter as long as you get the win. And even if it needs to be 6-0, hey, it's a win, right? It doesn't really matter. Uh, but you got to play better football than that going forward. That's for sure.
Yeah, who do they have coming down the line? I know their schedule is not all that easy coming up, so they're definitely going to need to, tighten things up a bit. They have the Broncos next week coming to town, then the Raiders, the Bills, the Broncos again, and then Kansas City. So, maybe this was a secondary bye week for them, but they're definitely going to have to, put up more than 6 against their upcoming opponents.
Oh yeah, the AFC West gauntlet, and then with the Bills sprinkled in there. And so Broncos is tough. At the Raiders isn't a gimme. Versus the Bills is definitely tough because the Bills are going to be scrapping for every single win they can get. At the Broncos, I'm gonna go ahead and write that as a loss. And then versus the Chargers, Week 18, that's going to be tough too.
Yeah, and the Broncos are playing rough right now. I know this week was a little rough for them, but yeah, they're going to be a tough one to face.
Yeah, you know. How about Lions Saints? You keep picking the Lions and it keeps working out for you, but they almost, keyword almost, let this game get away from them despite a 21-0 lead early.
They did. And I was getting kind of mad in this one because there were some major lapses in the game. I mean, 21-0 lead, but then I mean they allowed the Saints to get within a score a couple times. So the Lions
Yeah.
have won 3 of their last 4, but they keep blowing early leads. And I don't like when you're that far out ahead, like just stay there. Like we saw the 49ers do that this week. Like just keep scoring. Like there's no reason to, let off the the gas and just, let the game go to shit there. Like 21 points is not that much. And it was getting kind of frustrating as someone who picked them. Like, why are you letting them catch up? Like, there is no
Hmm.
reason for them to be allowing this many scores. And their defense just really just kind of didn't really show up in the second half.
Yeah, and their starting defensive tackle Aleem McNeil goes on injured reserve this week, so that doesn't help. Their pass rush has been inconsistent. Outside of Aiden Hutchinson, they don't really have anything in that pass rush. So that's
Yeah.
something, you know. Brian Branch has been an absolute stud, but outside of Brian Branch, who's making plays on that defense? It sucks Alex Anzalone missed the game, so that might have played a little bit of a role as well. But yeah, I mean, I was pissed off early because the Saints were not only turning the ball over and looking bad on offense, but then missing tackles, and it gets 21-0 quickly. And I'm like, well, this game's over, pretty much. But then they fight back, and they had opportunities. Derek Carr goes out with a concussion, and then it turns into the Jameis Winston show. And for me, I was upset at the Saints because Taysom Hill was making plays. Why? And they kept going back and forth and going back to Jameis Winston. It's like, look, just leave Taysom Hill out there. He's running for 8 to 9 yards a pop, and we know that he can throw the ball and do whatever he wants. I don't get the refusal to give Taysom Hill more and more opportunities, right?
They've always had that issue with him. So Green Bay let him go. And I was upset about that because I thought he could be a great, multifaceted player. The Saints refuse to give him an opportunity to do what he's best at. They just
Yeah.
want to kind of keep him as like their flex player in fantasy. They just want to kind of stick him where they need him week to week. But when he is producing better than your starting quarterbacks, let him be the quarterback.
Yeah.
Like, I
I
mean,
mean,
the combination, Derek Carr, Taysom Hill, James Winston, had 249 combined passing yards, 3 touchdowns, like solid. But like, why is it a threesome at quarterback? Come on, guys. Like, put the guy who is producing and who is playing well in, and then when he is putting up those numbers, leave him on the field. I don't understand the yanking of the chain and getting him off the field.
yeah, especially when Jameis Winston looks rusty and inaccurate. You're asking him to complete, five intermediate throws just to convert a first down, and he's inaccurate on like three in a row. And it's like Taysom Hill, I know can do better than that, even if it's just with his legs, right? So it was very frustrating as someone who picked the Saints to win that.
Yeah, it's interesting that I mean, we know they have issues on defense. Their defensive coordinator said that he was gonna, try to work on the secondary a little bit in the off week. But like, not only is their defense have some questions, obviously they let the Lions go up 21-0 at the beginning of the game, but they don't know who their starting quarterback is week to week. I mean,
Yeah.
Derek Carr is out for 3 games now because of the injuries, concussion protocol. Like he's been in and out a lot this season. So obviously we're gonna, turn to our other guys. But they keep saying Carr is their starting quarterback, but then Jameis Winston might come in, but then they turn to Taysom Hill when Jameis looks rusty. Like it's so dysfunctional. And I
Yeah.
think there's got to be a lot of confusion in that locker room.
Yeah, and they lose their third straight, and they're right in the mix. Even with a 3 game losing streak, we keep saying this all season long that as bad as they're playing, whether it be the Saints, the Falcons, or the Bucks, they're still all right there, bunched up together, trying to, with a chance to win that division. And it's frustrating, but if they don't make the playoffs, if Atlanta or Tampa Bay steals it, because the Saints have looked so up and down and inconsistent, head coach Dennis Allen needs to be fired. He's not good enough. He's not cutting it. And they need to get someone in there, maybe an offensive guy that can help Derek Carr. If you're going to bring in Derek Carr and pay him, then bring in a coach that can at least try to get his play up. But the injuries certainly don't help either.
Yeah, it was nice to see them turn to the run game a bit in this one more. Because
Hmm.
we've seen them have games where they're not getting the passing game going and then they just ignore the run. But Kamara and Taysom Hill combined for 110 yards, 3 touchdowns. They pretty much evenly split that. So I mean, at least they're finally using that run like they should be. But yeah, a lot of dysfunction, a lot of confusion in that team. And then on the other side of the ball, I mean, that offensive line,
Yeah.
they really held that together. I mean, the Lions have had a lot of issues with that offensive line and injuries this season. Frank Ragnow went down in this game with a knee injury, but they just keep next man upping, and that O line is really holding. So I'm, I'm shocked that it's been able to, contain as much as it has. I mean, we're missing Jonah Jackson, Taylor Decker. They've both missed time. Like they've only allowed 22 sacks, which is tied for the fourth fewest in the NFL, and they're the second most injured O-line so far in the season. So shout out to them for being able to piece it together.
Yeah, and I wish that another thing about the Lions is you've got David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, who I know you love. They're both
Yes.
excellent playmakers. Feed those guys. Stop asking Goff to do so much. Even when Jared Goff has no turnovers, right? We've been talking about 6 turnovers in 2 games. No turnovers in this game, and the Lions still almost blow it. And this is why I keep saying to Lions fans and to the national media that I don't think this is sustainable. As great of a story as this has been for the Lions, and they're 9-3, and they're likely going to win the division for the first time ever and host a playoff game, I don't think that they're capable of. They might steal one playoff win, but they're definitely not capable of going on a deep run in the playoffs. And they're just, I don't. There's issues there, and Jared Goff is absolutely one of them. But there's more issues than just that too, and I don't think this is. They've barely won 4 games in a row now. They haven't played very good football, and they have to fix this before the playoffs start. You agree, right?
Well, I think their issue is stemming from that defense. I mean, the defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn, said in the last week that he was going to address some of the unit's need, getting more pressure off the edge, limiting explosive plays. Obviously, that didn't happen in this game. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, giving up 3 touchdowns on the ground, 249 passing yards, like, come on. So obviously the defense is the issue, but I mean, the offense, I know we have our issues with Goff being a statue, but I mean, look at their record. Like, so 33 points this week, 22 last week, 31, 41, 26. Other than that game against the Ravens, in which they got their pants beat off, the Lions are putting up 20 to 40 points every week.
Yeah.
So I think it's the defense where the most of the issues come from. And obviously, Goff could be more mobile. Their O line has been through a lot, but I mean, you got to do something on defense. Like if your team is putting up 30 points and you're still almost losing the game, that's not the
Yeah.
offense's fault.
Yeah. And then so that's where my issues are. Like, if you can play this well on offense and protect the football and put up points and still barely win, imagine what happens if you get in a game where you do turn the ball over a couple times. Can the defense sustain it and keep you and win a game that way? I don't think so, right?
No, they definitely need to make some moves. I don't think they're going to make it very far in the playoffs with this defense.
Yeah.
And in the offseason, I mean, if the offense stays as it is, I think the offense is serviceable, it's functional. They have a lot of young talent that's really coming together. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, actually, shout out to him, finished with a team high 9 catches, 140 yards, and a touchdown. He now has 7 games this season with at least 5 receptions, which is tied for the second most by a rookie tight end in NFL history.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he is having an amazing breakout rookie season. And if this offense, stays and they don't make a lot of moves in the offseason, they just need to beef up that defense. And I think they could be a legitimate contender next year.
Well, my only pushback on that, because I agree that Sam Laporta is the shit, Amon Ra is the shit, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, they have weapons, they have a good O line, they need to fix the defense. I'm here to say that Jared Goff is not the guy. He
Oh, I
might
don't
be
think he is
having
either.
he might be having a decent year, but you're not gonna go deep in the playoffs and contend in any conference with Jared Goff. And the Lions and their fans need to learn this. And they're going to have to upgrade or draft or whatever. They're going to have to fix that quarterback position eventually, right?
I think they could get another serviceable year out of Goff if their defense were to step up. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
look at these scores that they're putting up. If their defense was holding people to 14 or 15, they could score 2 less touchdowns a game and still be winning.
Yeah, but I don't think it's sustainable. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a golf guy,
Oh,
and
no. I believe your favorite
obviously,
phrase during Lions game is "golf is ass," but yeah, I know you're not a golf guy.
yeah, I think those weapons are making golf look better.
Oh,
But
they absolutely are. But I mean, he's surrounded with weapons, so he doesn't have to be that good. He just has to be serviceable, which he is.
yeah, yeah, that's an interesting point, and we'll see. You know, a lot of football left, and we'll see what the Lions do here. The month of December is where this a typical Lions team would have lost this game.
Yeah.
And so credit to the Lions for finding a way to win. And now they're going to go what? To the Bears, right? To Chicago?
Yeah. There are yeah, they're in Chicago and then at home and the Broncos come to town the following week.
Yeah, so I mean at Bears, they're going to lose on Sunday versus the Broncos, they might lose that. And then at the Vikings, at the Cowboys, I mean, let's see here because me being the hater, I'm gonna say 4 game losing streak on deck, and Lions fans are gonna be like, "What are you talking about?" And you're full of shit. You're a hater. But I mean, it's possible, and it starts with at Chicago on Sunday. The Bears played them tough and almost won in Detroit. Don't lose this game, Lions. Otherwise, it could start spiraling a little bit. I'm just
Okay,
saying.
I'll save most of this for when we make our picks for that game. However, the Lions beat the Bears and they had 3 interceptions and a fumble the last
Yeah.
match.
Well, we're
How many
gonna flip
turnovers
it.
did they have this week?
None, but we're gonna flip it. There's gonna be 3 fumbles and an interception on Sunday.
I'm just saying, like Goff seems to have cleaned up his ball protection and keeping the ball safe. Those turnover numbers are way, way down. So, I mean, they beat you guys with 4 turnovers. So if he keeps those turnover numbers down, they're gonna put up 45 on the Bears.
Nah.
All right, we'll see. All right, we'll save that for later. Let's talk
Yeah,
Broncos.
we could go on. We could go on forever about Lions and Bears.
I know, I know. So let's talk Broncos at Texans. This game we had both picked the Broncos. The Broncos were on a 5 game win streak, and I had even said I feel like the Broncos are going to win in the next, or going to lose one in the next couple of weeks. It's better to lose now and not get too cocky and up on their we've won 7 straight, high horse.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely saw them losing this one going in. Picked against the Broncos and been wrong, over the past month. I finally got on the bandwagon last week, picked them to win, they won. So this week I thought I'd continue that. And of course, they fucked me up. Uh, the Texans looked really good in this game, though.
Yeah.
So not, not taking any of that away from the Texans, but the Broncos were a mess in this game.
Yeah. And credit to the Texans. The Texans are so much better than we thought. Even me being a CJ Stroud fan, being a Will Anderson fan, being a D'Amico Ryans fan, I thought this was a 6-11, 7-10 at best team. To be 7-5 and actually have a shot at making the playoffs, even a shot at winning the division, is unbelievable. And CJ Stroud is absolutely balling. That defense, all the praise has been going to CJ Stroud, and that defense showed up on Sunday with Derek Stingley with 2 picks, Will Anderson Jr. with 2 sacks. Um, Russell Wilson had a bad Russ game with the 3 interceptions, and that's what he has to avoid. But the Broncos, in my opinion, are still a good team. That streak, I agree, was bound to end at some point. And in Houston, we thought they could still get it done. And Russell had an opportunity to be clutch and win that game and threw a pick.
Yeah, pick
But
in the end zone to end the game.
yeah, but to me, the Texans are on a week to week basis. I mean, they almost beat the Jags. Like, this team is for real. And no one wants to see the Texans if they sneak into the playoffs.
And it's interesting too because they will have an issue one week and then the next week they address the issue. And then
Yeah.
they'll, like the past defense in this game showed some of those early season struggles that we had seen and they corrected it in the second half. I mean, we have seen the Texans have issues and fix them week to week and gradually get better. I mean, they didn't come into the season hot, firing on all cylinders, but each week is a slight improvement. And that is a lot better than we can say for most of the teams in the NFL. They'll have an issue,
Yeah.
they'll slap a band-aid on it, they'll ignore it, they'll, beef up the O-line and ignore the fact that they don't have any receivers. Green Bay. But it's very nice to see a team that's actually examining its issues and addressing them on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, a young team with a young coaching staff. They look years ahead of schedule. And I love to see it. A big win at home. Um, like I said, if they sneak into the playoffs, this team is capable of knocking off a contender like a really good AFC team in the wild card round, like right away. And so whoever it is, you have to be careful playing this Texans team. And who knows? I mean, this with Trevor Lawrence hurt, what if these Texans win the AFC South? That would be incredible.
Well, I think it's interesting. I mean, looking at their divisions and stuff, it doesn't really occur to you, but this loss by the Broncos to the Texans here might be an issue because had they won it, it would have given them head-to-head wins over the Bills, the Browns, and the Texans. But looking at the wild card race for them, unless
Yep.
the Texans win the division, they're going to be a thorn in the Broncos' side come down to the end of the season if the Broncos don't, end up winning that division, which we're not expecting them to. So that might be an issue, this tiebreaker here. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it sucks because they were as bad as they played, they were there in position. Russ, picked up that fourth and down with his legs.
Yeah, they clawed
Uh,
back into it.
yeah, had him in position to win it through that pick. And in my opinion, he panicked a little bit. Like he almost got sacked, and then like he immediately got set and just threw it. And I felt like he could have got set and kind of like bought himself some more time and found the open guy, and he kind of like threw it up for grabs and got picked. So that's if Russ turns the ball over, that's how the Broncos get beat, and it doesn't get any easier for Denver at the Chargers, at the Lions the next 2 weeks. They better turn it around quick and go get a big road win over the Chargers.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see whether the Broncos are legit and a real contender over the next couple weeks.
Yeah, 100%. Um, Big loss for the Texans. We have to talk about rookie Tank Dell, who was having a great rookie season, 47 catches, 709 yards, 7 touchdowns, immediate impact in the league. Suffers a fractured fibula, out for the season. That's gonna hurt the Texans for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I'm really upset about that. I'm glad they were able to pull off a win, kind of for him there. But I mean, TD Tank Dell is a big, big loss for them. So that
Yeah,
really, really sucks. But I think they're still improving without him, and they'll just be even more of a juggernaut next year when he comes back. But I mean, that sucks.
yeah, 100%. They play. This is good news for the Texans, though. They play at the Jets next week. Very capable of winning that one.
Yeah, I mean, anyone's capable of that one. Look at the Falcons this week. The 5-6 Falcons got the 4-7 Jets. I mean, the Jets are trying to scrap wins together. Rodgers is back at practice. We saw something on the sidelines this week. Aaron Rodgers mouthed something to he looked annoyed. Rodgers did mouth something to Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson smirked. I mean, there are so many things going around the internet about what their potential conversation was. Like, hey, I'm not fucking coming back into this shit, like you keep him. I don't want him back, kind of thing.
Oh,
Like,
I wonder if he said, "Hey, you want to go back out there?" And Zach's like smirks, like, "Yeah, right."
well, they kind of offered him back the starting slot, and he was like, I don't know if I want to. Like, they're
I
a mess. I mean, the New
I
York Jets.
can't blame him. I really can't.
God.
And the Jets have no one to blame but themselves. Look around the league right now. Joe Flacco, he looked pretty good on Sunday. Carson Wentz was available. We don't know, but he's got to be better than Tim Boyle or Trevor Simeon. And
And
look at Jake.
they
Look
signed
at
Trevor
Jake
Simeon this
Browning.
week, didn't they?
What's that?
They signed Trevor Simeon, or did they just make him an
No,
offer?
he was there. They signed him off the practice squad. So he came in and it didn't look any better than Boyle. They benched Boyle and then they cut Boyle after the game and signed Brett Ripien.
But Ripien, that's who I meant. Sorry, Ripien, not Simeon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God. Because it's just, they're basically the same person.
Yeah. And I mean, imagine Jake Browning or Josh Dobbs, right? Josh Dobbs was available. They could have traded for him, or what? He was cut, wasn't he?
I mean, you knew what your backup quarterback situation was going into the season with Aaron
Yeah,
Rodgers, a 39-year-old injury-prone quarterback. Yes, Aaron Rodgers has talent. How many times has that man broken his collarbone? How
yeah.
many weeks has he missed in his career? He is no Brett Favre who played, X many years straight without missing a game. That man has injuries. So let's, bulk up that quarterback room, make sure our practice squad has some good backups in case we need to call somebody up. Nope, we're good with the Zach Wilson. What the fuck? So
Yeah,
stupid. They
yeah,
deserve to lose these games.
and they benched Zach Wilson last year and almost cut or traded Zach Wilson. Like they knew who Zach Wilson was last year, and so people are gonna say, "Well, they had Zach Wilson as the backup." Well, they already knew that Zach Wilson sucked, and they knew they had offensive line issues. And you could have brought in a veteran or somebody. I mean, Josh Dobbs, Jake Browning, or Joe Flacco, Carson Wentz, somebody that has some experience to give yourself some sort of like, hey, at least we tried, right? But Zach Wilson, Trevor Siemian, Tim Boyle, that's not cutting it. And yeah, you're asking for trouble. And I mean, it sucks that Aaron Rodgers went down week one. No one could have predicted that. But still, they could have made moves after the Rodgers injury, and they didn't, and they stayed put. And now they're 4-8, and they have no one but to blame but themselves.
Yeah, I mean, they're about to start their fourth quarterback, and they haven't done that since 1989. I mean,
Yeah.
it's it's a mess because technically they're not mathematically eliminated yet. They're technically still have a shot at the playoffs. But Roger said it wouldn't make a ton of sense for him to return from his injury and come back and play unless there was a shot at the playoffs. So
Yeah.
unless they go on a tear here and start racking up wins, which as we've seen, they clearly don't know how to do,
Yeah.
there's no point in Rodgers coming back. So this epic comeback story is just completely
Getting wasted.
unnecessary.
Yeah.
Such a waste.
And it's very frustrating as NFL fans that love a good story. It's easy to hate the Jets right now.
Yeah, I mean, one bright spot for them, wide receiver Xavier Gibson, he had a really nice day. I mean, obviously there wasn't a ton going on in offense, but he finished with 5 catches and 77 yards, his career highs on both numbers. So nice to see a little bit of energy, a little bit of life on that offense.
Hmm.
But there's not much you can do when Tim Boyle is your quarterback. So
Yeah, exactly. And let's quickly talk about the Falcons, who improved to 6-6. They're first place in the NFC South. They're the one team. We've been hating on the Falcons all season long, but looking at the Saints and the Bucks, the Falcons look like the more stable team than the other two. I mean, I know you're a Bucks fan. Do you think Tampa Bay can? They're only a game back. Can Tampa Bay catch Atlanta and win this division, or does Atlanta? I think we both are going to kind of say the Saints aren't going to do it. So it's between Tampa and Atlanta, right?
I mean, I am quickly losing faith in Tampa Bay. I
Yeah.
love Baker. He's my guy. He's a ton of fun to watch, but they're just not producing much of anything right now. And granted, they can pull off a win here or there, but I mean, I'm just not impressed by anything that they're doing.
And so, what about Atlanta? Are you impressed by anything they're doing? I mean, they might host a playoff game.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I'm impressed. Confused, I
Yeah.
guess.
I mean,
I mean,
Desmond Ritter,
they
right?
lost
Start
to
a
the
playoff
Cardinals two
game.
weeks ago. So I'm not
This
impressed
is
by anything that they do.
this
Uh,
is where the Falcons host a playoff game and just get their doors blown off in the playoffs, right?
Yeah, this is exactly what I'm thinking. I mean, you beat the Jets, big whoop. And they beat the Saints last week, which makes me, completely doubt the Saints. But I mean, you lose to the Cardinals? No, I
Yeah.
don't trust you.
Yeah.
I think they're just
And
lucked into a real easy schedule right now.
I mean, they could easily, the Cowboys could come into Atlanta. And I think we're taking the Cowboys in that if that were the playoff matchup.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I
Um,
mean, neither one of us is a Cowboys fan. I have one quick question though for this game. What is going on with Brees Hall? If your quarterback can't throw, you turn to the run game, right?
yeah.
What on earth?
I
Completely
think,
ineffective, inefficient. I mean, he rushed 13 times for 16 yards, 1.2
yeah,
yards per carry. If your
I,
offense is that dog shit as far as, the quarterback situation, run the ball, but they can't throw the ball, they can't run the ball. And I don't understand. Like,
well,
it's not like Atlanta's rush defense is that good.
well, I think the issue you run into is when the quarterback and the passing game is so bad, the offense is going to stack the box and say, "You're not going to run on us. We respect Brees Hall. We respect Dalvin Cook. We're not going to let the running backs beat us. So we're going to stack the box and play the run, and then bet that Tim Boyle and Trevor Simeon aren't going to throw it over the top for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns on us." So that's the thing about the NFL is everything is tied together. And so if the offense and passing game is so shit, then the defense is going to be like, we're selling out, we're run blitzing, you're not running the ball on us, right?
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. You're right. But man, it was really frustrating to watch Brees accomplish nothing.
Yeah, that's why we were all high on him and Dalvin because if Aaron Rodgers is back there, then you have to play the pass like crazy, and that opens up running lanes
Oh
for these
yeah.
backs.
They would have been everywhere. It would have been beautiful.
Yeah.
But
Real
tough
quick,
season for the Jets. So many injuries for them. So I mean, this season has not played out at all as they had hoped. So that kind of sucks.
yeah, at least the Patriots are in that division, so you're not the worst team over
That's true. That's true.
there.
Silver lining.
Cardinals Steelers, we both had a lot of faith in the Steelers in this game. They had looked so much better last week after firing Matt Canada and the return of Pat Fryermuth. And they get beat badly by the Cardinals 24-10. Kenny Pickett goes down. As much optimism as there was over there in Pittsburgh going into Sunday, it's all gone now. Kenny Pickett's hurt. You're 7-5, and I don't see how this Steelers team makes the playoffs or does anything in the playoffs. It's like all the hope and optimism just went out the window, don't you think?
Hey, go back and re-say that. For some reason, you just got like super like splotchy and like robotic sounding. Alex? Hey, I think I lost you.
Yeah.
Okay, you're good. You're back now.
Huh?
You like got super robotic and like staticky and then just went off air completely for a little bit.
Okay. It was probably an internet connection,
Okay.
but we're good now.
You were in the
So
middle of your monologue about the Cardinals.
yeah, so I mean the Steelers look so bad. All that optimism that was there after last week's win over the Bengals and getting to 7-4, it seems to all be gone now, right? That was a terrible loss at home.
I mean, they had so many injuries in that game. I mean, starting guard Isaac Samalu left early with that shoulder injury. Kenny Pickett knocked out midway through the second quarter. I mean, boot on the ankle for the entire second half of the game. I mean, it was tough. And it's one thing when, a couple players go out here or there, but Kenny Pickett is that offense. Like
Yeah.
I mean, George Pickens and him have a great connection. Pickens got involved early in this game and they were connecting really well, and then, Kenny Pickett goes out and not really a not really a consistent game when that happens. But and the Steelers, so not only did the offense take a lot of hits, but their third down defense was a mess. They allowed
Yes.
a season high 10 third down conversions in the game. I mean, 20-yard plays 5 times throughout the game. Like, come on. I mean, and then a stupid unnecessary roughness penalty. You can't you can't be making bad mistakes when you're missing your starting quarterback and when your defense is already sus.
Yeah, and James Conner was running all over him. And Kyler Murray is frustrating in the fact that he can use his legs and buy time, and he's got the arm to make any throw. So when he buys time, he can find guys open and extend drives. It's a really frustrating day for Pittsburgh. But all that being said, the Steelers luckily have the Patriots coming to town on uh Thursday night and going this Thursday. That should be a get right game. You can get a win and feel a little bit more confident. Don't mess around and lose. Imagine if they lose that game to New England.
I was just gonna say, if they're thinking about this like a bye week, New England's gonna, beat them six to
Yeah.
zero, reverse the score from this week.
No, in Mitch Trubisky, I trust. The Steelers
I
will get it
know.
done.
Mitch is so fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one. I'm gonna be watching just for that. Um,
Have six touchdowns and three turnovers, that's
yeah.
a Mitch stat line right there.
This is where I was always confused about Kyler Murray coming back. I felt like the Cardinals were tanking, right? That's what we thought going into week one. We thought that they were selling out to go get Caleb Williams. And Kyler Murray has quietly won two starts now and has them at 3-10, and now they're like a 3 or a 4 overall pick instead of number one or number two. Um, how I mean, what do you do if you're a Cardinals fan with this win, right?
So it's one thing to, be excited that your team looks good. I mean, James Conner's return to Pittsburgh, 105
Yeah,
yards, amazing. Like awesome. Our pieces are playing really well, but why? Why are we playing well?
yeah,
Like we have 3 wins now. All we're doing is like you're not going to make the playoffs. I mean, that division is tough anyway. Seattle, the Niners, I mean, like there's no point in winning right now other than, doing it for the sake of the game and improving, your team cohesiveness and kind of, building rapport for next year. But as a Cardinals fan, are you just concerned about your starting players getting injured again?
yeah, yeah. I
Like,
don't know.
yay,
And
we
then,
won. Please stay safe. Like,
yeah.
stop running. Like that's got
Well,
to be stressful.
there was two narratives. Like, so the reason you bring Kyler Murray back is because teams hadn't seen him in a year and a half. So
Oh, you think he's boosting his trade value?
maybe,
Okay.
or you're seeing what Kyler Murray still has, and you're like, hey, let's build around Kyler Murray. He's our franchise guy, and then we don't have to draft a quarterback. We can draft and build around Kyler. There's two schools of thought there, right?
I mean, I don't think they need to draft anyone, and I don't think they should trade him. I think they should keep him and build around him.
Yeah,
He's a good quarterback. Injury prone,
yeah,
yes. But I mean, this was a strong showing for him. I mean, they played a team that was in the playoff hunt. I mean, they've
yeah,
got, I mean,
exactly.
their final 4 games against the Niners, Bears, Eagles, and Seahawks. We're gonna see exactly who this team is and what they have now that their starter, is back in. But build a team around him. I mean, you give him that running back and James Conner, you give him some good receivers. We have seen some great plays out of this team. Build around the guy, draft to support him, get him some more weapons. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't think there's they should absolutely not draft a quarterback. That would be a waste of a draft pick.
yeah, and even you can even trade out of that pick and stockpile more draft capital, maybe get a player in return for a team that desperately needs a quarterback, right?
Yeah, I mean, as annoyed as I was in the Steelers losing this one, it was a great game for the Cardinals, and I was very impressed by Kyler Murray.
Yeah, and it's easy. This is such a bad loss, and it's easy to say the Steelers look done and whatever. But all you got to do is beat the Patriots at home on Thursday, and you are 8-5, and still right there in the thick of things. No reason why you can't get a wild card spot. So, uh, let's see if Trubisky can hold down the fort until they get Kenny Pickett back. But they got to play better than they did on Sunday for sure.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about another AFC contender matchup over here. We had Miami 8-3 coming into the 4-8 Commanders. I mean, everyone picked the Dolphins in this game, right? Was anyone
Yeah.
picking the Commanders?
No, and the Commanders fired Jack Del Rio, and the defense was supposed to be better. Ron Rivera taking over play calling, and did they even cover Tyreek Hill?
I mean, Miami only put up 45, not 70, so yeah, a couple times.
I think the Dolphins took their foot off the gas. They could have gone for 60 or 65 if they wanted to.
I mean, yeah, it, this I had to stop watching this game. I took it off our split screen because I mean,
Yeah,
come on. Ugh.
terrible.
And like I'm
Um,
not a Miami fan.
me
I
neither.
think they blow up numbers against bad teams. And then I think they're gonna get completely demolished in the playoffs.
Yeah,
Um, but Tyreek Hill is just so good. He's insane. I
yeah.
mean, touchdown catches 78 yards, 60 yards in the first half. Like, come on. Like 157 yards with 5 receptions.
So,
Who else in the league is doing that right now, you know?
and speaking of that, who else is doing that in the league? Real quick, in a year where no one's running away with the MVP conversation, there's Brock Purdy's balling, Dak Prescott is on fire right now, Jalen Hurts is in the conversation. Would you have Tyreek Hill as a potential non-quarterback MVP?
I mean, I love
I,
me a non-quarterback MVP.
yeah, I know Tua's in the conversation too, but I think anyone that watches the Dolphins knows Tyreek Hill is what makes that team go, right?
I mean, the college football playoff conversation we've had, I mean, I wanted Marvin Harrison Jr., for
Yeah,
the Heisman. Like, I love me a non-quarterback candidate. So
yeah,
Tyreek Hill should absolutely be in that conversation. He is having an amazing season, and we already knew he was an amazing player. But I mean, I'm cracking up at him this week because I saw some of the quotes. People were asking him, like, "Oh, well, why'd you leave Kansas City? They were a contender, shot at the Super Bowl every year." And he was like, "Well, I get there and he already had Kelsey and they went out to dinner all the time. I want to go out to dinner. I want to go to Nobu." Like he was jealous of the bromance, so he moved to Miami basically, which is, fair. Like you do you. Like he got more money out of it, but like he's such a character.
yeah.
Yeah. So I
No, I
mean,
mean,
obviously he's insane. I'm, happy for his win, but let's talk about the other side of the ball. I mean, Sam Howell leading the league in passing yards. I'm not sure if that still stands after this week. Um, but I mean, what happened? Obviously, this is a step back for him. I mean, he's thrown a pick six in 3 consecutive games now, tossed 1 touchdown to 5 interceptions.
yeah, and
Like, oof.
there's people talking about Eric Bieniemy for head coach again, and I have my concerns about it because Sam Howell, yeah, he's throwing for a lot of yards, but he's throwing for a lot of interceptions too, and it's not leading to wins. And the Commanders suck, to be honest. They're 4-9. They've lost four in a row, and I know it's the defensive side of the ball is really bad, but uh, I don't know. I don't. I'm not liking what I'm seeing. I know Sam Howell is up there in passing yards in the
But yet he
entire
just
league.
flings the ball to the end of the field and hopes somebody's there to catch it. Like
Yeah,
half the
it's
time
it's
it goes
not
to the
very
wrong
impressive.
team.
Yeah, I'm not
Like
impressed by it.
he's not efficient and he's not accurate. He has a strong arm, but that's pretty much it. Like the accuracy is absolutely not there.
And he's got a lot of weapons, right? So I mean, I feel like you could plug a lot of quarterbacks in there and they might lead the league in passing, right?
Well, I mean, I think his weapons get to the ball. I don't think he gets the ball to the receivers, but it's like
Yeah.
he's playing a playground game of 500 where he just yeets the ball up and somebody goes down there and grabs it, which is why there's so many interceptions. Like, yeah, he leads the league in passing yards because he's just flinging the ball. He's not aiming it to anyone. Usually his receivers are the ones who grab it, but a lot of the time it's the other team. Like that stat does not impress me at all because all he has is an arm. He is not accurate. I don't think it's, great play calling. I think he just throws it and hopes somebody down there grabs it.
Yeah, and if you're the Commanders, Ron Rivera is going to get fired. I don't know why you just don't. I mean, keep Eric Bieniemy, right? I mean, we're not big Sam Howell fans, but obviously you drafted Sam Howell to be your franchise quarterback. He's throwing for a lot of yards. Why not just keep Eric Bieniemy? Unless the interceptions are you know turning you off to that fact, but um, look around the league, right? Like there's you either have a quarterback or you don't. So at least you want to build around Sam Howell and try to develop him, why not just keep
Yeah.
Eric Bieniemy?
Like it's his first season as a starter. So we're not
Yeah,
gonna like, expect perfection out of him. And like I think accuracy can be learned. I don't think you can learn arm strength. So I mean
yeah,
I feel like he
timing and
can be developed.
yeah, timing, pocket awareness, stuff like that. That can cut down on turnovers too.
Yeah.
So
Bulk up the O line a little bit more so he's got more time to focus on who he wants to throw to and where the route is versus
yeah,
just trying to get the ball out. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, they definitely have some decisions to make in the off season, but I hope they don't, try to cut their losses too soon.
yeah. And on the other side with the Dolphins, I agree with you. Yeah, they're 9-3. Yeah, they're the number one seed in the AFC right now, which is it's important because it means you don't have to go to Arrowhead. You don't have to go to Buffalo this year. Teams have to go to Miami. And so you're playing in sunshine in January. But are the Dolphins good enough to win the AFC, even go to the AFC Championship? I don't think so. Do you think they're capable of it? Because I don't.
I mean, we've seen them have a couple good weeks that are timed right, and we've seen, other AFC contenders have a rough week. I mean, the Chiefs this week, you know. So,
Yeah.
maybe if the stars align on that matchup, they could potentially be in that AFC championship game. Do I think that if they do luck into a Super Bowl spot, they will beat whoever shows up from the NFC? Absolutely not.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and guarantee the Dolphins don't go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I don't even think they go to the AFC Championship game. They might win in the wild card
Yeah,
unless they get
I
that
could see
one
him.
seed.
Yeah, I don't know.
But they could easily lose the first playoff game too. It depends on the matchup. But the right team can easily go into Miami and beat them.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we've seen the right team in a couple matchups this week just absolutely get their pants beat off, and we've seen the Dolphins really show up here and there too. So I'm just saying, if the stars align, they could potentially, make it. But I mean, from what I've seen
Well,
from the AFC this season compared to the NFC, I'm I'm planning on an NFC Super Bowl win.
knock on wood, if the stars align, like Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson go out for the season with injury, then yes.
I mean, Patrick Mahomes didn't have to leave this week to lose. Hey. All right, we'll talk
Yeah,
about that in a minute. All right. So,
yeah,
let's move on to my boys. We already talked about a little bit the Bucks. I mean, what really needs to be said about this game? The 1-10 Panthers at the 4-7 Bucks. The Bucks beat them 21-18. Carolina put up a bit of a fight. The Bucks looked like shit, but still pulled off a win. I
yeah.
mean,
Get right game.
it was a get right game. I mean, they broke their losing streak, but close, low scoring. Tampa Bay's wide receivers, really showed up at the end there. I mean, Mike Evans, 75-yard touchdown reception. It was beautiful.
Mhm.
And you said last week or earlier this week when we let Mike Evans free, like it's over. Like he was gone.
Yeah, he's a beast. He's so consistent. Um, and get right game, but the Bucks didn't exactly look that great getting right either. And it
No,
doesn't give me a lot of hope for them going forward. But they needed it. It's a much needed win. They get to 5-7, and let's see, they play at the Falcons next week. That's a big ass game. It's an opportunity. If you lose that game, then you're two back. If you win that game, suddenly you're tied for first place. So important game of all the games this season. Tampa Bay needs to show up at Atlanta.
yeah, and this game I'll cut them a little slack. We know rain games can be kind of tough. Everything's slippery, like the field is damp. So a
Yeah,
little bit of slack here. But I mean, the Bucks won a game. That's kind of what's important. They ended their skid. Um, Carolina didn't really surrender though. I mean,
yeah,
following Godwin's touchdown run, they answered back with an 11-play, 75-yard, ended with Chuba Hubbard, second touchdown of the day. That kid
yeah,
had a day. I mean, he rushed for 104 yards, two touchdowns, 25 carries. He had a season high 48% success rate. Like he had an amazing day. I know they, didn't put up big numbers, but his personal trophy of the day, I mean, he carried that team.
yeah. He's a good talent. He played a great game, and shout out my guy, rookie wide receiver Jonathan Mingo, who I liked in the draft. He's had a really down rookie year, but starting to break through the last week or so. 6 catches for 69 yards. He's a talent. I would like to see Mingo and Bryce Young kind of develop together. I think Mingo has potential, superstar potential, but he a very slow start to the season, but he's starting to get it going, so that's nice to see.
Yeah, Adam Thielen had a pretty rough day.
Yeah, 2 weeks in a row now.
Yeah. He just I don't know if like there was a miscommunication on a couple plays, but I mean, Antoine Winfield Jr. on that pick, like Antoine was more in tune with where the ball was going than Adam Thielen, it looked like.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if it's a communication issue or just a bad route, but I don't Adam Thielen, I don't know. I don't know what's going on there.
Well, imagine being a veteran that's had a lot of success in the NFL, and you're in that Panthers offense this year on a one-win team. It could be kind of human nature to check out a little bit come
Yeah,
December, right?
that's fair.
Let's go Browns Rams. And so, what happened with our picks here? We flip flopped, right?
We did. So going into this one, I had picked the Rams. I was going against the Browns, but I was so emotionally invested in Joe Flacco's return and the Browns pulling off a win. I was okay with them losing. If like I had a 6 game lead coming into this game.
Seven,
Well,
seven game, I
seven
think.
after this week. But like coming into this, I just didn't want to be rooting for the Rams when I wanted to root for the Browns. So I offered up a pick swap, and Alex was on board because we kind of just went opposite on this one just to have an odd number.
And
So
I was a little desperate. I had lost the Colts game. I had lost the Lions game. I was down 8, and I was like, I need to make a switch here. And I texted you. I was like, I'm thinking about going Chiefs against your Packers because I need to get back into this.
no, that would have been stupid.
And then you were like, well, the on paper, I mean, look at the panel who picked the Chiefs. Everyone on NBC
Mhm.
picked the Chiefs.
Everyone. That pissed me off.
Um, And then you were like, I'm kind of regretting my Rams pick. And I'm like, well, I'll jump on those. I'll jump on the Rams if you want to go Cleveland. And so we flip flopped that one. I needed a win desperately. The Rams came through for me there. Um, and then I decided to stick with the Packers. But keep sticking with this game. Actually, a fun game.
It was a fun
Flacco
game.
looked
Um,
good.
yeah, Flacco looked good. I think the issue was Sean McVay really took advantage of the injuries on Cleveland's defense. I mean, Denzel Ward was out, Myles Garrett playing through that shoulder injury. McVay,
Hmm.
saw that opportunity and really ran with it. I mean, he was, scheming up some great plays for Matt Stafford, neutralized the Browns pass rush, coverage issues. Like I mean, he cooked up a great game. And you and I have our issues with Sean McVay. But in this matchup, he was really all over it. Puka Nakua and Matt Stafford were connecting like crazy. I mean, 70-yard touchdown, yeah, they had a great game. And Puka is just insane. I know we've talked about him all season and his, historic numbers, but he's having week after week these amazing explosive plays.
Glad to see Puka healthy. It looked like he had a season-ending collarbone injury there.
I know he went down, and the way he grabbed it, like my husband has broken his collarbone, but I was like, that looked like a collarbone because I mean I've seen
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers do it twice,
He
and
looked like he was in major pain.
dude, the way he was grabbing it, and like I know his ribs, he's got specially they designed some like cushions for his ribs because he's got that recurrent rib issue. Um,
Hmm.
but the way he went down, I was like, that's a fucking collarbone. Like I was
Hmm.
sure of it. So I'm really, really glad it wasn't because he came back and kept doing his thing.
Yeah, he's a baller. Cooper Kupp has kind of been outshadowed by the rookie this year, which is crazy to think about. Kyron Williams being back is a huge boost for the Rams as well. But for me, the big story here the last 2 weeks, the Browns' number one defense in the NFL that got them to this point has given up 29 points last week and 36 points on Sunday. this defense is kind of starting to come back down to earth a little bit.
I mean, the injuries are not helping.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of a morale thing too. I mean, you lose your starting quarterback. Dorian Thompson Robinson is suddenly your, new guy. Like you got to lose some of the morale and some of like the buzz too when that
Yeah.
happens. But Joe Flacco, I mean, he had a strong debut. Like they can rally behind him. I mean, he didn't look nearly as rusty as I thought he would be. He came in, they started, pulled the lead quickly in the game. And then, Elijah Moore had his best day so far as a Brown, 4 passes for 83 yards. I just, I don't think it was quite enough. Flacco had that interception when it was a 1 point game,
That was
unnecessary
a big
throw.
interception.
That was
Yeah.
bad. Um,
Because
and
it was a 1 point game at that point, and the
yeah,
Browns were right a chance to go down and take the lead, and they throws that pick, and it was kind of like, was that tipped or was that just a terrible decision or throw or what? You know?
it looked like it might have been tipped, but I couldn't like I saw it on Red Zone, so I wasn't 100% sure if it was. But I
I
mean,
don't think it
overall, he had a
was.
pretty good day. I mean,
Yeah,
23 of 44, 254 yards, 2 touchdowns, only that one interception. Considering what would have happened if Dorian Thompson Robinson had played, I think, it's an improvement,
yeah,
but you know, it's encouraging. Even though they lost, it's encouraging that he's not that rusty. I mean, he hadn't played a snap since week 2 of last year. So that's promising. That defense needs to get healthy for Cleveland if they want to have a shot at anything, though.
yeah. Good news for the Browns. Their next two games are at home versus the Trevor Lawrence-less Jags and versus the Chicago Bears. So a chance to get two wins. We'll see if they can do it with Flacco. And, as bad as they both looked this week, the Browns and the Steelers, there's opportunities for them both to potentially get to like 9-5 and still be right there in the hunt to make the playoffs. So, not the end of the world for either team.
Yeah, I mean, and the Rams, this is an interesting game. I mean, they keep hanging around. They've won
Yeah,
3 straight, which I
three
kind of
straight.
missed. I mean, 2 of those were against, teams with winning records. So they're kind of back in the thick of it, which is so weird to say. Because
Yeah,
they don't seem like a contender at all. I mean, McVay and Stafford have really like clicked this season. They're keeping the offensive flow without, Cooper Kupp there, which you lose Cooper Kupp, we kind of figured, that was kind of it. But I mean, these rookies have really stepped up for them.
yeah. So the Rams are now 6-6, tied with the Seahawks. Uh, looking at their schedule, can they go 9-8? And is that enough to sneak into the playoffs? Next week they're at the Ravens. That's a loss. I don't, and if they win that, then they're for real. But I don't see them winning that.
Yeah, if
Then
they
they're,
win that, we will eat our words.
yeah. Then they're versus Commanders versus Saints at the Giants, which are all three winnable, and then at the Niners, which should be a loss. So they're staring right down 9-8. And if they can pull off a win, they're not expected to, maybe 10-7. But I think 9-8. I still like the Seahawks to finish with a better record and make the playoffs, but we'll see. They're right in the hunt, that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of, contenders in the postseason, let's, talk about the game of the week. I mean,
Yeah,
the matchup of the week, supposedly. Um, this game, like the Niners were favored by what, 3?
yeah,
Going, I mean, they're 8-3 coming into Philadelphia, who are 10-1. It was supposed to be this really close game, and you and I were both sure the Niners would pull off a win here. And we had talked about how efficient the 49ers are and how they're just much more of a full, well-rounded team. And man, were we right. 42 to
yeah.
19. And
I,
the Niners had a slow start in this one too.
yeah, 2 3 and outs, immediately down 6-0. Um, but I mean, that's what the eye test for me says. It says this team is the most efficient offense in the NFL when fully healthy, and can anyone stop them? And
Yeah.
people are making the comparisons statistically and eye test wise to the greatest show on turf with Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk, Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce, Oz Hakeem, and those Rams. I mean, the Niners looked so good in Philly against a very good Eagles defense. They just picked them apart, and they can run so many different plays out of the same formation, and they're so versatile with Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel back there, in motion. And then you've got George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk running off of that. I don't know how you defend that. Do you? I mean, that's crazy.
I mean, they were so good. But let's, the other side of the ball, that 49ers defense holding the
Yeah,
Eagles to I mean, they were in the red zone and got held to a field goal, and they look so frustrated on offense, which is what
yeah,
you want. Like, you want your defense, tightening up. I mean, granted, they allowed them to score, but holding the Eagles to a field goal is still impressive.
yeah.
Um, I mean, and then the Niners scored touchdowns on 6 straight possessions. Like they ran away with it. I mean, this game was insane. I don't think it didn't seem like the media was thinking this was going to be this kind of game, and you and I both thought it would.
Yeah, I don't know if we thought it was going to be this much of a blowout, but as far as the Niners being fully healthy and being incredibly tough to stop, we had a good feeling about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, and especially this was a bit of a personal thing for the Niners too, because I mean, last year that NFC Championship game, Brock Purdy goes out halfway through the first quarter, and we know what happened. The Eagles went to the Super Bowl, lost the Super Bowl. I had said at the end of last season, if Purdy had stayed in that game, if they had
Yeah,
won that game, they would have won the Super Bowl.
yeah.
And I mean, Deebo Samuel said the same thing. This was his personal Super Bowl here. Like, no, this is we would have won. And he has said that in the offseason. He's run his mouth so much. So they proved that right. And I mean, he had what, 2 touchdowns in this game? Deebo
Three
had
touchdowns,
three? Okay.
100, 138 yards, 3 touchdowns, and that to me is the difference. Deebo Samuel kind of had a down year a little bit last year and wasn't fully healthy. This year, you're seeing how much of a threat Deebo Samuel can be. He's a legit running back with wide receiver skills. And man, just get the ball in his hands. And if you miss one tackle on him and he gets ahead of steam, you're not stopping him. He's going for six.
Yeah, well, and this game was a great personal game for both him and Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah,
Deebo Samuel now has gained the second most yards after catch this season, and the most yards after catch since entering the NFL in 2019. And Christian McCaffrey, that after that second quarter rushing touchdown, he joined Marshall Faulk and Lenny Moore as the only players in NFL history with at least 50 rushing touchdowns and 25 touchdown carries in their
yeah.
career.
And
So,
that's what we talked about. You think greatest show on turf, and Debo and Christian McCaffrey are similar in that
mhm,
regard to Marshall Faulk, right?
yeah.
And like a pass catching running back that you can't tackle in the open field. And those guys are so hard to stop.
Yeah, they're
And
insane when that whole offense is healthy.
yeah, and you think about how efficient and productive Kurt Warner was with those Rams. Brock Purdy is accurate and get putting the ball, making good decisions, and throwing the ball down the field. And he needs to be in the MVP conversation, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And it's funny too, because I have seen people say if he was drafted higher, then he would have been in the conversation this whole time.
Yeah,
But,
it,
I'm glad he is now. I'm glad people are finally giving him his due credit. On the other side of the ball, the Eagles linebacker depth, major problem. They just picked up Shaq Leonard
yeah,
one day after the game. They have Nicholas Morrow, but he allowed 129 yards and a touchdown on 7 targets. So, he'll probably get bumped down to number 3 once Leonard gets in there. Zach Cunningham should be healthy. But yeah, they've got a big issue with holes on the field in their linebackers position. So hopefully Leonard kind of steps up and works for the Eagles, but otherwise that's a great spot for opposing teams to take advantage of.
yeah. And they need to be, it's tough against the Niners because their efficiency and their ability to get the ball out quick kind of neutralizes that elite pass rush. And then you're up to the linebackers tackling and covering space, and they're not as elite there. On the offensive side of the ball, DeAndre Swift held to just 20 combined yards. The Eagles' offense is not the same without an explosive DeAndre Swift, and so that really limited them. Dallas Goedert being hurt definitely limits them. They're going to need both those guys going in the playoffs, and I wonder the Niners took this game so personally after the way the season ended last year. Do the Eagles take a potential NFC Championship game rematch this personally after getting their ass kicked in Week 13? Something to keep an eye on down the road, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have a feeling they'll be seeing each other again.
Yeah. So
Unless the
unless
Packers decide to make a postseason run after their win at home over the 8-3 Chiefs. Okay, so I mean, we got to hurry up. We're talking too much tonight, but this was a crazy week of football.
yeah, it was
Green
fun.
Bay. We both picked Green Bay. We had a feeling. I mean,
Yep.
we've seen some holes in the Chiefs this year, and man, were they fucking exposed this week. Jordan Love, ooh, his past 3 games, this man, he has
Playing
had
great.
MVP numbers the past 3
Yeah.
weeks. I mean, I came into the season with no expectations. We'll just see what happens. But holy shit, after this, these past 2 games, Thanksgiving Day over the Lions, I wasn't sure if they could pull that one off. This one, I just had a feeling they were hot. The Chiefs feel kind of off. I mean, we took 7.5, almost 8 minutes off the clock on our first possession, 75 yards. I mean, they were managing the clock so well. Love was 10 of 11 for 109 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first half. I mean, it was insane.
Yeah. No, they played an almost perfect first half, right? And that's the recipe for beating a great quarterback like Mahomes is ball control and finish those drives with touchdowns. I mean, Mahomes had the ball twice, maybe 3 times briefly in the first half and only scored 6 points. Great job limiting the Chiefs to field goals on both their red zone opportunities. But Jordan Love is, I mean, speaking of efficiency and most importantly, playing with confidence right now. Um, some of his throws are dangerous, and like it like potential to be disastrous in turnovers. But he's throwing it with such confidence and trusting his arm, trusting what he sees, and ripping it, and it's working out right now. And great job by Green Bay setting the tone early, and that's how you beat a team that is quote unquote better than you. Is get up early and put the pressure on them. And in Lambeau on prime time, that's a recipe for chaos.
Yeah, and what's interesting, if you remember a few weeks back, Green Bay had the worst point differential in the first half and was tied for the best or was second best in the second half. This
Mm-hmm.
game, I mean, this game had the fewest number of possessions in the first half of a game since 1995, I think.
Yeah.
The, I can't remember exactly what the year was. If I got that wrong, please correct me in the comments, guys. But I
Mhm.
mean, Jordan Love has been playing so well. His past 3 games, I mean, 267 yards, 268 yards, 322, 8 touchdowns over the past 3 games, 0 interceptions, an average quarterback rating of 117.5. I
Yeah.
mean, he's playing so well, and I'm trying not to take it for granted because, try, don't want to get ahead of myself here. But I mean, our kicker, Anders Carlson, when Mason Crosby and the Packers parted way, it was kind of, the end of an era. And we've had some issues with Anders. Like he has missed some, 38, 43, but he bailed us out here. I mean, he had a 38-yard field goal attempt that, should have only been 38, but then stupid penalty there. So add another 10 yards to it. And I was prepared for him to miss it. Like 48 yards is kind of the end of his range, and he nailed it.
Yeah,
Um,
right down the middle.
yep. And then the defense kind of sealed the victory by stopping Patrick Mahomes for a third straight drive at the end there, and it was a beautiful game.
Well, and we can't talk about this game without talking about that last drive and the officiating. And
Well, let's back up one before that. Um,
yeah,
before we talk about the missed pass interference, which I absolutely agree on one of them. Everyone who is saying that there should have been a PI called on a Hail Mary, have you ever seen a Hail Mary before? Like
Well,
ever.
guess who was the ringleader of that? Who was the one that was going crazy? Chris Collinsworth, of all
Chris
people.
Collinsworth was pissing me off so much during this game.
At the end of the game, this is my thing, and he has become almost unbearable on Chiefs
Almost.
broadcast.
I am
Like
so sick of Chris Collinsworth.
he is all over Mahomes. He might as well ask like Chris Collinsworth is probably jealous of Taylor Swift because he just takes it too far with his Mahomes love. And then he's begging for a pass interference on the Hail Mary. They never call pass interference. And if they had, everyone would have lost their mind. It was absolutely not worth a call. But let's start it off with how many times I've complained about this, and we saw it again on Sunday night where Mahomes is running for a first down and he's along the sideline and he's tippy toeing along the sideline trying to gain extra yards. And the defense comes up and hits him like they should. And he was still in bounds and they throw the flag. And whether he's still in bounds or barely takes one step out, that should always be no flag. But because it's our precious Patrick Mahomes, we are going to go overboard in protecting him. And I can't stand that shit. And I know you couldn't stand that call there.
Yeah, they deemed it late and unnecessary. Late would be
Yeah.
if he was already out of bounds. He was not late. He was fully in bounds. Both of his feet were, his toes
And
were 2 inches away
clean,
from the edge. And
shoulder to shoulder
unnecessary.
clean.
It was a clean shoulder hit. And how was it unnecessary? It is the hit that ended his run. Like
Yeah. Trying to pick up a first.
he was trying to pick up a first. The hit ended it. It was a clean hit. It wasn't helmet to helmet, shoulder to shoulder. How was it? Like, oh, I was screaming at Chris Collinsworth. And then the whole game, Collinsworth was, I mean, Patrick Mahomes' interception, you've seen the memes that were like, oh, it was the best interception I've ever seen. Patrick Mahomes threw such a good, well, here's a guy who throws a great interception. Like, dude, I could not stand, I muted the game for a bit just because I was getting so heated at the TV. But yeah, that should have been a PI at the end.
Well,
Obviously,
so
not the Hail Mary end, but on MVS, that should have been a PI.
well, again, that hit on Mahomes is what really grinds my gears. That has happened in big time playoff matchups. If you remember, that hit along the sideline played a big role in the outcome of the AFC Championship game
Uh-huh.
just last year.
Yeah.
He gets
And it,
those calls all the time, and I can't fucking stand it. And so the NFL has said repeatedly, "Oh, we're gonna." They've said it. They've said, "No, we're gonna treat quarterbacks like running backs when they're outside of the pocket and running the ball down the field." Well, they continuously, especially if it's their superstar quarterback Mahomes,
uh-huh.
they continuously throw the flag there, and I hate it. And the league needs to, going forward, make those calls reviewable because if you can go back on replay, they would have picked up that flag. It was clean and it was in bounds.
Yeah. And what pisses me off too is like Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts has had his shit rocked in that
Yeah,
same
Justin
play.
Fields.
Not a
Yeah,
flag. Justin Fields,
yeah,
not a
yep,
flag.
yep,
Just Patrick Mahomes. But I mean,
yeah.
I could keep talking about this game forever.
Um,
Jordan's fourth game of the year with 3 passing touchdowns, no interceptions, tying him with Brock Purdy for the most such games in the NFL this season.
nice. Yeah.
So, you know.
So the pass interference, real quick, that was a makeup no call because I think the refs knew that that was a bad call, so they didn't throw it on that pass interference. It was
Yeah.
pass interference, but uh, I'm okay with a makeup no call, especially after a bad one before that.
Yeah,
And
I
then,
also hate spot fouls on PI.
yeah, exactly. That would have
Yeah.
been a huge penalty.
Yeah.
And then when the Chiefs completed a pass, no timeouts left, and the
Oh,
defender
the
gets,
clock.
yeah, and he
Oh,
gets
forgot
dragged
about that.
backwards out of bounds. The clock should have kept rolling. And the ref came in and said, "No, stop the clock." That's another officiating error. The refs, in my opinion, tried their damnedest to
Hmm.
give this game to Kansas City with Taylor Swift there on Sunday Night Football, and the Packers still won. So credit to your Packers on a huge win and a lot of positive momentum right now. 3 straight wins, 6-6 in the mix. and they play at the Giants versus the Bucks at the Panthers. 3 winnable games coming up. I mean, 6 game winning streak potential.
I know. I'm trying not to get my hopes up, but I mean the Chiefs was kind of my litmus test for if I was going to be all in.
Yeah,
So I guess we
so
all in
you're
on
all in
there.
now.
And technically, right now, we are the sixth seed in the NFC. So we're technically in
Yeah.
the playoffs at the moment. So, you know.
Well, now I'm gonna have to start being the Bears fan and start going after you a little bit for the
I
Packers.
know. Back when they were shitty and just in the hunt, you could, pick and root
I
for
could
them
be
against the
nice to them
Chiefs.
then, yeah.
Now you're over it. But we could talk about this game all day. Let's, move it forward. Our last game of the week. Bengals 5-6 at the Jags 8-3. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence was a huge, huge play in this game. I mean, him leaving the game with an injury, not at all
Yeah,
what I wanted. That's a really tough loss for them. I think it kind of, wrapped up the end of the game, which is what helped Cincy to win. But a great overtime Monday Night Football game. What?
yeah. Great
Um,
game.
Great game. Also, Josh Peterson, the son of Doug Peterson, made his NFL debut, making him the first son to play for a head coach father in the NFL since any game since 1978. So that was kind of cute.
Nice. I didn't even see that.
Yeah, Josh Peterson
Um,
got his first NFL start for daddy.
how about Jake Browning looking like, prime Tom Brady out
Oh
there,
my God.
and
Didn't I
you're
message you
out
and say Jake Brady?
there. You're out there in Seattle, so you're at a bar. You had to be hearing the love for Jake Browning, the Washington Husky.
Oh man, the UW fans are like, "Yo, it's Jake Brown. Look how good he's playing." And I was like, "Shut the fuck up! I picked the Jags. The fuck, mind your business." Yeah, I mean, he had a great game, which is honestly impressive. I mean, Tyler Boyd was I don't know what was going on. But it just seemed like he couldn't catch anything. He dropped that screen pass and also he threw an interception on a trick play,
Yeah,
which
terrible play call too.
terrible play call. And it was the first, like it was the first play of that possession. It wasn't in
Hmm.
the fourth quarter, it wasn't crunch time, it wasn't garbage time. Like if your backup now starting quarterback Jake Browning is having that kind of game, why the hell would you give the ball to a wide receiver?
Exactly.
Like they
But
deserve to lose this game after that play. So they kind of pulled it off and won anyway, but what on earth?
yeah. But yeah, great game from Jake Browning. And the issues with Jacksonville started well before the Trevor Lawrence injury too. This was a typical game of the Jags felt like they could win this one easily, and they were playing with their food instead of
Hmm.
putting them away. They started slow. They finally got the lead late, and then Trevor Lawrence got hurt and allowed Cincy to come back in, and then you play with your food, allow a team to hang around, and they beat you in overtime. So big win for Cincy. We had all written the Bengals off after the Burrow injury. Now they're 6-6, just a game back. If Jake Browning can keep playing anywhere close to this level, who knows? Maybe the Bengals aren't dead after all. And you know,
Yeah, and you had even said that when we were picking this game, like I think the Jags can win it, but I hope they don't play with their food too much. I hope they don't, get too cocky coming into this one. And you hit the nail on the head.
yeah. And that's the worry about Jacksonville sometimes is they don't if they don't play their best football, they can easily be beaten. When they play their best football, they're one of the best teams in the league, but they don't always. Speaking of that, now the Jags they had an opportunity last night, a prime opportunity to take the number one seed in the AFC, and they could definitely use that. Now with this loss, now they're 8-4 and just a 1 game lead on the Texans and the Colts, with Trevor Lawrence out with a high ankle sprain. So not only do they go from potentially the 1 seed to potentially not even winning their division. So
So frustrating.
dicey times in Jacksonville here. They better hope that they can survive this.
Yeah, and now their starting quarterback is CJ
Bethard.
Beathard. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's wrap it up with this. Week 14 Thursday night football. The 2-10 Patriots at the 7-5 Steelers. Bailey Zappi versus Mitch Trubisky. Get right game for Pittsburgh. A much needed win.
Yeah, I mean, I am all in on Mitch. Even though he has his moments where he is absolute garbage, I love to root for Mitch. He's really fun to watch. He just looks like a junior high kid got thrown out on the field and he's trying to impress his dad. That's what he looks like every time he's out there. So rooting hard for the Steelers in this one.
Yeah, and feed the running backs. You got two good backs in Jalen
Yep.
Warren and Najee Harris. Feed those guys. The Patriots aren't going to put up many points. The Patriots probably ceiling is 10 points. So just do enough. Don't play with your food, as we like to say. Don't mess around and get a big win, much needed. So, great episode as always, Amanda. Good shit. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment, guys. We appreciate all your support, and stay tuned. We got a special guest coming on Thursday night. You guys are not going to want to miss that one.
Yeah, we're real excited to have him back. Alex has had him on before, but he's definitely one of those big names you guys will all know and recognize.
This will be his fourth time on the show, and he's a former two-time NFL head coach. So,
Definitely going to have some great insights on some of the hiring and firings and kind of quarterback moves that we've seen this season. So definitely
absolutely.
tune in for that one, guys.
Absolutely. So have a great week, guys, and peace out.